And now, coming to you live from the City of Angels, Los Angeles, California, it's the Sheena Metal Experience with your host, Sheena Metal, only on KGRA Digital Broadcasting.
Hi, and welcome to the Sheena Metal Experience on KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network every Friday at 3 o'clock Pacific Time. I'm your host, Sheena Metal. I'm a psychic medium. I'm an interfaith minister. I'm a 27-year talk radio host, and I come to you live from Los Angeles every week. This show is about spirituality. It's about humanity. It's about creativity. It's about passion. It's about service. It's about becoming your best you and then inspiring others to do the same in this big, beautiful world. And it may be my show every week, but I guarantee you it is always and forever your experience. My guest today is a wonderfully talented actor, producer, speaker, advocate, humanitarian, and just one of my favorite people in the whole world. You know him from many things he's done, including Family Affair, Sigmund and the Sea Monster, Tom Sawyer. But when I think about him, I think about all the service he's done for the world, all the work he's done in the world of recovery, and how much I love and adore him and his beautiful humanity. Please welcome to my show, the wonderful Johnny Whitaker is here. How are you, my friend? It's great to hear from you.
Hey. It's wonderful to be here with you, Sheena.
It's wonderful to have you here, my friend. And you look beautiful. And I love your flag shirt.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, that's
I am here.
Something I talk about all the time, and I know you and I are very close, so I know you know this, but I always say that it's so important, no matter how you are politically, what your views are politically and sociologically, not to forget to love your country, to love this beautiful country that we live in and its rich, wonderful history and the story of a bunch of underdogs that nobody wanted, that basically got shoved here in a boat and made this beautiful place. And along those lines, be proud of the state you live in. Be proud of the city you live in. Be proud of your communities. Be proud of your church if that's where you go. Be proud of your schools if that's where you went. We spend so much time, I think, in our lives focusing on the things we didn't like about our life and don't like about our life that we forget to celebrate what's beautiful, right?
I agree. I would like to be more supportive of my city and my state, but unfortunately, when I go to pick up my mail at my P.O. box, I have to step through feces and homeless people on the street because the city of Los Angeles and the powers that be have allowed things to get as bad as they are, especially in Hollywood. My post office box that I go to is right off of Sunset Boulevard.
Okay.
And I have to literally, if I can't park in the parking lot, and I have to park away, I have to literally walk over human beings and their feces and their living quarters, which, you know, I don't want to bother somebody in their home, but it is, I am appalled at the way in which the city of Los Angeles, I mean, I live actually in Santa Clarita, which is north of Los Angeles by about 40 miles. And we have a few homeless here, but the city of Santa Clarita has done a decent job in, you know, helping them find help.
Yeah, I don't know what the answer to that is. My church that I'm pastored at, Founders Metropolitan Community Church, and you've been there many times with me speaking at my interfaith Saturday night spiritual service. is right there, very close to where you're talking about. And it kind of breaks my heart when I see it. And I don't know what the answer is, but I'll tell you that I have a home in the very liberal Los Angeles, city of LA, and I have a home in the very conservative Orange County. And the homeless problem is just as bad in both places. So I think that we sometimes get so busy with our lives, right? And the us and the me and how do I fix me and what about me and what am I doing? And I think that's beautiful because I think charity starts at home, right? You need to take care of yourself, fix your stuff so you can be a better person for the world. But I think we've become so myopic and focused on ourselves that we're forgetting about all the people that live in this country and in this world that maybe are forgotten people. And I think that your work in recovery, right? You deal with a lot of people who others have written off.
Oh, yeah, no. And my dear, loving nephew was homeless for almost 2 years. Mm. He had a bed and 3 hots and a cot available to him if he would only accept the rules that my sister and brother-in-law put down for him. Mm. But he did not like those rules. Instead, he chose to live on the street, in and out of other people's tents. Mm. And he only needed to get to stop using methamphetamines, and he chose not to.
Sure.
But he had a beautiful home, beautiful everything. His bed was, but he couldn't. My sister even was going to allow him to smoke marijuana because he said that he needed it and that it was necessary. Hmm. And so she was going to go along with that. But fortunately, I was able to help him, and he was able to accept the fact that he is an addict, alcoholic, like I am. Hmm. And I told him it runs in the family, my boy.
Oh, yes. Yes, it's called being Irish for my family.
Absolutely.
My mom called alcoholism the family disease. And it's why I never started drinking, because she said, there's your uncle passed out on a bar stool. Is that what you want? And it resonated with me. And it's why I thought very carefully before starting any substance and then decided that the answer was no. Right. Because there's that bumper sticker that says if it wasn't for alcohol, the Irish would rule the world. And, perhaps that's true, right? I mean, we're both Irish, yeah. Right? Perhaps that's a true statement. So, yeah, no, I understand it. And I think not only folks that are affected by addiction, right, but also folks that are affected by untreated mental illness, I think make up a huge population of our homeless people. And I think that we spend a lot of time sort of looking away from what mental illness is, and not just physiological mental illness, but emotional mental illness, people who are spiritually sick. We just don't want to think about that. And it's amazing how people can ride by, 40 homeless encampments taking up 2 city blocks and just start talking on their cell phone and aren't even thinking about the fact that those are people who are suffering. And I think that spiritually, that is some work that we need to do right now, because...
Well, you see, the problem, in my opinion, is that the homeless, 90% of them have either mental illness or dual diagnosis, which is mental illness and drug addiction.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I would say, I don't know exactly what the statistics are, but 80% of those who are on the street are there because they do not, like my nephew, they don't want to be told what to do, and they want to be able to do what they want, when they want, and how they want.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, in Los Angeles, we had a murder by a homeless man who came into a nice gallery and stabbed a woman because he was both mentally disturbed and had a drug addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And then in New York City, people getting pushed onto the subway by homeless people. The quote unquote wokesters say that you cannot do anything to these people and you have to give them what they want. Hell to the no.
No.
They don't get anything if they do not follow some kind of normalcy.
Right. Right. Well,
and that normalcy is you have the right to do whatever you want when you have your own place to do it in. But you don't come to my place, you don't come to my city, to my area, and hurt people because you have a mental health disease.
Right. Well, that's right.
You have to go, and unfortunately, sometimes people have to be forced into mental health treatment.
Right.
I have other family members who have anger issues and, bipolar.
Irish. Yeah.
That's
I'm
part
just
of
hearing
it.
Irish. You just keep
Well,
throwing
it is
them out,
the
Maggie, and I
Irish.
just keep hearing Irish.
It is the Irish, but
Yeah.
I can get really mad very quickly. I go from 0 to 10.
Me too.
Because I'm Irish.
Me too.
But I have to, and in my old age, and because I can't fight as well as I used to, I have to learn, okay, I do not want to get beat up.
Yeah. Right.
So I'm not going to yell too loud. But my favorite verbiage is, this is unacceptable.
Yes. Yeah.
And when I'm teaching my classes, I show a PowerPoint with me in this circular, what do you call it?
Like a sphere, like a you're inside a sphere.
No. In a top and bottom are a circle, and the sides are in a
right, like a column.
Column, yes. Yeah, but there's another word for it.
Yeah,
anyway.
Sure.
So I put myself, or a picture of me, in there. Cylinder, that's what it is.
Cylinder, yes.
I put myself in this cylinder that's 6 feet high and 6 feet wide. And as long I can do anything within those 6 feet. And in the 12-step program, we have the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. And that is everything that is outside of that 6x6 cylinder.
Yes.
And grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can. And that is everything within that sphere.
Yes.
Which is my reaction to what's going on outside.
Yes.
And how I can react to it.
Right.
And so if what is happening on the outside is unacceptable to me, then it means that I need to take a look at it and see what is it that is bothering me. And if I can help to change that, I shall and I will.
Right. Well, and the last part of the serenity prayer, right? The wisdom to know the difference.
And that's the wisdom to know where you begin and where I end.
Well, but don't you think, John, that from a spiritual perspective, the Serenity Prayer is a beautiful Kickstarter for getting on one spiritual path, right? You're
Oh,
working to
absolutely.
fix yourself. You're not allowing outside forces to affect you fixing yourself, right? It's not your job to fix everyone else. It's not your job to tell people what to do. It's not your job to turn people into you or judge others by your standards. You got to clean up your own backyard, fix your stuff, and know the difference between what needs to be worked on and what is not your business. It's one of the 4 agreements, which I think is the hardest, right? Is what other people think of me is none of my business. And
Exactly.
we spend so much time, I think, especially with social media now, we spend so much time focused on what others think of us that
Yeah.
we use that as a distraction to fix ourselves. And
What you think of me is none of my business.
Exactly. And I always say when I do my spiritual services that the 4 most important relationships that we have, right? Our relationship to others, our relationship to the earth, our relationship to spirit, higher power, and our relationship to us. Most people prioritize them in that order. But the truth is they need to be prioritized in the opposite order. Your connection to you is the most important thing because that you fix yourself, right? Teach a man to fish, put your oxygen mask on first, and then you can save the plane. Then our path, right? Our relationship with spirit. Then what is our place in the world and what are we doing to make a better place? And last is others. But we always put what others think of us first. And I think that becomes a slippery slope, especially when you're trying to fix a physiological problem, a mental health problem, an addiction problem. You're trying to get on your spiritual path. We allow what others think to distract us. And
one of the things that an addictionologist says is that addiction, well, I think I've told you, but there's 4 ways that we become addicted or that we can become addicted. One is through our environment, that, nature versus nurture, but how we were brought up, what kind of an environment we were brought up in.
Yeah.
If we see drugs being sold while we're walking to school and it's normal, then that's going to be normal as I'm growing up. There's nothing wrong with it.
Right.
I can do the same thing. Let's do some with you. And, let's go ahead. So that's the normalization because of where and your situation in growing up. The second is your genes, and that is not your Levi's, but your GENES.
Sure.
And that if there is addiction in the chromosomes and you have some of those same chromosomes, then you're going to have that situation, or that there's the propensity, a higher propensity for you to become an addict alcoholic.
Sure.
If it is in the family gene pool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The third is trauma. As we all are praying for our brothers and sisters in the Ukraine.
Yes.
Those individuals going through this trauma, I guarantee you that, well, most of the Slavic countries have the highest alcohol usage in the world.
Yeah.
Moldova being number 1 in the world as far as pints of alcohol drank per person.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yes. Moldova is number 1. Bulgaria is number 2. Russia comes in about 5th, but Ukraine is up there as well.
Yeah.
But after all of this craziness and trauma, because war, besides being hell, war creates trauma, and the human body is not accustomed to major trauma in our life. And a major trauma is when we are harmed physically or emotionally, or we see others being harmed physically or emotionally. And those individuals are going to be more likely to have an addiction problem because of the way in which, 2017, 22,000 people showed up to Las Vegas for the big festival there in October. And on Friday night, my belief is that 15% of the population in general have a problem with drugs or alcohol, 85% don't. But the 22,000, that's about, I came up with a number, about 3,200 of those 22,000 had a problem with drugs or alcohol. After that crazy man started shooting and killing, I think it was 50 people were murdered, 500 were harmed, and then 22,000 had a major crisis happen before their eyes.
Yeah.
On Friday night or Saturday morning, there was 3,200 people that were alcoholic addicts. By Sunday morning, that number, I am positive, rose by 15%.
Yeah.
That there was a higher propensity of another 3,200 or 6,400 people that then became, the propensity was higher for alcoholism and drug addiction. We've seen that during the pandemic.
Right. Oh, right. I was just going to say, probably with those folks that survived the massacre in 2017, and you're bringing up with the pandemic, not just the alcoholism, but the opiate addiction, right? Because I know that I have struggled my whole life with anxiety, Johnny, as you know, and pretty much non-existent for the last few years. When the pandemic hit, feeling empathically the global fear of everyone and the global grief of everyone, and dealing with, my spiritual clients in crisis and panic, they were all going to die, going out into stores and seeing the panic in people's eyes over their masks, my anxiety came right back, and I had to really talk myself off some ledges. But unfortunately, when folks go to doctors and say, I'm freaking out, they write the prescription before they say, do you want to talk to somebody? Do you want to try some meditation?
And do you know why that is?
Because it's easy and it's you spend money.
Because 90% of the medical personnel have not had education in addiction.
Right. Yeah.
They have 14,000 hours of education, and maybe 24 hours of that 14,000 is dedicated to addiction and emotional stress.
Yeah.
Plus, Big Pharma, I don't know if they still do this, but before we had the opiate problem that we did, Big Pharma was not paying, but giving perks to doctors who were prescribing, which, they would have a Los Angeles County deal with the doctors. Whichever doctors prescribe the most Vicodin this month, they and their wife and 3 kids can get a free trip to Tahiti.
Yep. That's, it's true. And I also think it's just the way that a lot of doctors think. I stay away from doctors that discourage me from taking supplements instead of a lot of medication, or lifestyle changes instead of medication. I think a lot of young doctors now are just taught that. I hit something around the time I turned 50 a few years ago where a lot of my doctors got old and either died or retired, and young doctors bought their practices, and everything changed from that older doctor who was always a mixture of use good common sense, and if that doesn't work, then come see me and I'll write you a prescription, to here's 6 prescriptions for something. You need to take them all. And I think that the world has changed and hopefully is changing back, because from a spiritual perspective, when you are doped up, right, when you are blocking your connection to spirit with drugs, alcohol, untreated depression or anxiety, you're losing all the good spirituality that you're getting. Universe is trying to talk to you, but you're blocking it with substances or with panic. And it feels so good to get through that and not be bogged down with medications all the time, so that you can really sort of, feel that and get on your spiritual path. And that. How is your relationship with spirit, with God, different now than it was when you were using?
Oh, well, you see, the interesting thing is the adversary, whoever and however you want to look at that, call it Satan, the devil, the dark side.
Sure, negativity.
However you want to look at that. When I got a booyah from smoking crack, wow, you just feel euphoric.
Right.
And it's,
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Woo! I love it. It's great. Now, God or spirit or the universe, however you want to look at that,
right,
can, but until we get ourselves more spiritually in tune, we have that exact same emotion that we can get when we have connected with someone,
right,
or something, or connected with spirit. I like to tell my students that we're talking and all of a sudden they start to cry or they get all verklempt. And I say, well, hold on. That's a beautiful thing. What are you feeling when you are feeling this? And it's, well, I'm remembering a bad situation.
Sure.
Or I'm thinking of some beautiful, wonderful things that are happening.
Sure.
And what those feelings are spirit talking to spirit.
Right.
And that's when our bosom gets full of that love. When we feel that, what I call the love of God,
yes,
or the love of Christ, come into my heart.
Yes.
And that I can feel that spirit talking to my spirit, and they're just saying, oh, this is so good. I really am so happy that you're understanding this. And you get this booyah of the spirit.
Yes. Right. Yeah.
It's
like I always tell people that, having been sober my entire life, it's kind of its own kind of acid trip, just being that clear my whole life and never having had anything dull any of my memories. That is its own kind of high. It's a different kind of high, but it's definitely a high. And I've realized as I've gotten older and become more and more in tune with spirit, that a lot of that high is allowing that channel to open up. I always see the channel like right up here, allowing that channel to open up, and all of that light and communication and good stuff that comes in from spirit just kind of take me over. And it is that same kind of feeling. And I know that feeling because my crack was sugar. And I have been on and off the sugar wagon my life. And I had not had sugar since September. And a friend of mine gave me this tiny little piece of cake, and I had a bite of it. And the minute that sugar hit me, it was like, boo! Oh yeah, hello. And I was like, no, we don't, that's not good. We don't do that. But you could be addicted to anything, right? It's not just drugs. It's not just alcohol. Addiction is addiction. If you can't quit something, that's not necessarily a good thing. But there is that.
One of the definitions of addiction is continuing to do something even though there are negative consequences.
Right.
And so, and it starts little by little. And myself, the first time I did marijuana wasn't so bad. It was a good experience. I had a pretty young lady with me, and we were making out, and things happened after we made out.
Sure.
We were playing strip toker.
Oh, that's a new one. I've never heard. That's fantastic.
You pass the joint,
sure,
and then you release some of your encumbering clothing.
Okay.
And then by the time that you're done, you enjoy each other's company.
Okay.
But strip toker. And but then, the first time I tried methamphetamine was, I don't do drugs. And the young lady who invited me to was a trans woman who invited me to enjoy her party and to do it. So, baby, this ain't no drug. This ain't no coke. This is a designer drug designed for you, baby.
Oh, that's the first time I've heard meth referred to as a designer drug, but okay.
She had designed it especially for me. So, of course, I had to try it.
Extra rocket fuel.
And so as I did, and I was, I finished it because I had one side of my face was all up into my head in my brain.
Sure.
So you got to do it on the other nostril to equilibrize yourself.
Nice. Okay.
And so I did it in the other nostril, and then what is that? And she goes, baby, this is Tina. Tina. Christina. Crystal methamphetamine. Oh my gosh, this little Mormon boy just did speed. No. Can I have some more?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
And, that's what happened. And other things had happened. So normalization of inappropriate behavior is what is bringing our world and our cities and our countries it's the downfall.
Yeah.
Because little by little, as we accept inappropriate action by others, and as we accept our own inappropriate action or response, the second time it's easier.
Mm-hmm.
The third time, I started selling methamphetamine with Delata. Delata was the name of the trans woman, and I was there every other day to pick up more because I was able to then sell it and enjoy. But each time doing that inappropriate behavior became easier and easier.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And it stopped being something that was bad. Mm-hmm. It stopped being something that was illegal and 100% wrong. Now, other things happened under the auspice of my addiction that other people do with impunity, without worrying about it. And that's fine for them.
Mm-hmm.
to do however and whatever they want. But, you know, for me, I was a hoe. And for me today, that's not acceptable.
Right.
And because I'm in the 12-step program, I have had to stop my hoedoms. And I have done a 9th step, which is making amends to people wherever possible, except when to do so would harm someone. And I made a commitment that I would never, ever again take physical or emotional advantage of a female who was under the influence. And I made that as a standing commitment for myself, that no matter what would happen, I would have what's called a living amends. That for all the evil and hurt that I may have caused people in the past, I have made a living amends by never again, in any way, shape, or form, harming emotionally or physically any female, no matter how angry, how horny, how whatever I am.
Yeah.
I have got to take myself, put on the brakes, you know, dopamine has to go to the side and say, how can I be of service to you, sister of God?
You know, and I've always been that way too. I've always had partners that, for the most part, and even people I've dated have drank or whatever they did. I was usually the weirdo. On the off occasion, I've dated somebody who was sober. I've never dated anybody like me who never did anything. For me, any kind of partnership, whether it's romantic intimacy, it's spiritual intimacy, like I'm doing a meditation with somebody or doing a seance with somebody, whatever it is, I don't like to do it when someone is altered, because for me, it takes the spiritual out of the spiritual experience, right? I'm having the spiritual experience because I'm tapping into spirit, but they're unable to because of the shape they're in. So they're not. So I have been intimate with partners. I've never been intimate with anyone out of committed partnership, but I have been intimate with my partners when they were drunk or high or whatever the story was. But I'm not a fan, and I don't think I would going forward, because if you're not also in that place, right? If you're not also on that high, it's just not. You're in two completely different spiritual headspaces. And I think if you're going to come together and work with somebody on something, like I said, whether it's a spiritual thing or it's an emotional thing, it's a teaching thing, it's an intimacy thing, whatever it is, it's not good to do it with somebody when you're in two completely different spaces.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what I was talking about earlier, where the adversary makes, I mean, come on, having an orgasm is orgasmic, you know, it feels good. Right. There's nothing bad about it. And again, similar to that spiritual high that we can get, you know, they're similar. And when both parties are in a spiritual mode, and you have that endorphin rush from that mutual enjoyment session, then in my opinion, that's what God or the universe, when we are in that committed, loving, serious relationship, then that love is just added on top of that great feeling. And we can, do it again and again, enjoying that emotional, spiritual connection.
Yeah.
Because not for individuals such as myself at 62, but
I don't
younger,
know. I just turned
the younger
55.
generation, when you get together and have that mutual situation, that's when another life can be brought into the world.
Oh, yes, exactly. Right.
And that's because you are co-creating with the universe or with God.
Yes.
And at that specific point, that's when, wow. And, some husbands and wives can go, I remember having that sex, and I know I'm pregnant because everything was just beautiful. And then you can have a situation where someone's been raped,
right,
and they are pregnant.
Right.
And, it's not the same thing, but you still, the book that I'm writing is going to talk about a girlfriend of mine who has a daughter who was the product of a gang rape.
Mm-hmm.
I fell in love with a little girl in a fatherly way first, met her mother, and then, proceeded to have a relationship with her. But having a positive physical encounter and then finding out that I was going to be a father to a child that she had within her, I remember our sexual encounter. It was not as spiritual as it could be because we were not both in that committed relationship. But still, I felt okay, now I've got to take responsibility. And, then it might not be as beautiful and wonderful as some other time that I have had that situation happen, but I will take that and, go with it. Unfortunately, 2 months after she told me, she decided to commit suicide and
Sweetie,
took the baby and her own life at that time, which was one of the components to my deciding specifically to go to the dark side.
Right. Right. Well, trauma makes you go one way or the other, right? You either go dark or you go very light because of it. And I think that that's a very common reaction. One of the hardest things I think about being a person on the earth. We talk about the fear of the zombie apocalypse, right? And I always say this when I teach and when I do my services, that there are people who have given into the dark side, right? Not just in a way where they're addicts and they're only hurting themselves, but they have, chosen to do things that are negative and harmful to others. Those people are like vampires, right? They are taking a piece of your soul when they do this horrible thing to you. And then they're turning their victims into a kind of zombie, right? You shut off, you medicate up, you turn off your emotions, you reject your spirituality because you've been hurt by other people. And I think that is more of a zombie apocalypse that I fear than the idea that we're all going to get a virus and eat each other's brains, because it's a soul virus, right? Other people are dinging your light. They're sucking out your light. They're taking away a piece of the light that shines brightly. And we need everyone's bright light to shine brightly on this earth. And leaving people in a damaged place where they can't, like this lovely lady that you dated, where they can't fully be themselves anymore because of the trauma that happened to them. And then her trauma, right, affected you because you cared about her, and then you cared about your child. and then she killed herself and took your child with her. This is how the chain of hurt begins, right? And it's so important to try to break that cycle, even if you have been damaged by something, to fight your way back to the living.
And I didn't want to.
Yeah.
I had made that cognizant choice.
Sure. Yeah.
That if this is what spirit is, or this what God is, I want no part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was easy for me to go to the dark side.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You know,
exactly.
It was easy for me to make that choice.
Right.
And then for the next 11, 12 years, it was sex, drugs, rock and roll.
Mm-hmm.
And, thank goodness to the 12-step program and to my family. I've got 24 years clean and sober today.
Graduate today.
Well, no,
this year.
Yeah, well,
right.
September I turned 24.
That's fantastic. That's so wonderful, sweetheart. And that you've decided
well, actually,
to...
it would be now on the 25th of April, it will be 24 and a half years.
That's amazing. That's, and that I'm so proud of you and so in awe of you that you have chosen to take something horrible that happened to you and the subsequent addiction because of the pain and turned it into a way to help the world. Because I think in this incarnation, right, we all have obstacles and spiritual obstacles and challenges, lessons we have to learn, but we're supposed to learn those things and then use those things to make the world a better place, to help. I love that expression, when you've gotten where you need to go, send the elevator down and bring up 100 people. And you certainly have spent now almost 25 years of your life doing exactly that. And that is an amazingly beautiful thing, my friend, because you could have just said, okay, well, I'm going to get sober and then I'm just going to think about me for the rest of my life. But you didn't. You use it to help other people that aren't where you're at. And that's so beautiful.
But you're not sober if you're not helping other people.
I agree.
You cannot be sober and be selfish about your sobriety. That's just impossible. And I got to tell you that after 2 years of not being able to go and meet my friends at LA County Jail, 2 weeks ago, I went for the first time.
Nice.
And it was a beautiful experience. It was hell trying to get in because after 2 years, they still didn't have everything, the kinks worked out. But, I had a young lady with me who was also an addict, myself, and 6 individuals who were in jail because of drugs or alcohol in one way or another. And to be able to do that again was just so wonderful. And that's that spiritual high that I get being there. And I left at one point because they didn't have all the paperwork right and weren't going to let me in. And I got to the gate leaving and I said, we've come too far.
Yes.
We're here. Yep. I must. And so I said, let me talk to your supervisor, and let me do this and let me do that. Yeah. And, I'm here. And, for 15, 20 years, I've been doing this and you're not, I didn't say, you're not going to F this up for me today. But to a certain extent, I said, yeah, this is going to work. Kind of the Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yes.
We're going to get in.
Yes.
Yeah. And because I left and came back and didn't accept no for an answer, they knew that they had to do something. And so I did it. But, our dear friends who are incarcerated, they're not bad people.
Some.
Well, there are some that are evil, awful,
Yeah.
terrible.
Some are bad, really, really bad people. But you're
Yes.
saying people who are, were pulled over for having drugs on them or addicted.
Non-violent drug offenders.
Right. Yes.
Is,
they need help.
Most of them just need to understand. Oh, and what I was going to say earlier is Dr. Mate says, and then I got on another tangent, but addiction is because there is hurt. And that we need to find out what is the addiction, where is the hurt coming from? And in my situation, the hurt was coming from losing a girlfriend and a baby, and losing a wife and an eternal marriage, and money and fame and all of that lost.
Sure. Yeah.
And so that's where that hurt came from. And once I could find and understand that hurt, then it is, okay, am I going to, like the Native Americans, everything that comes from grandfather or God, but they call God grandfather, everything that comes from grandfather is good. Now, it's how we take what is given to us, because grandfather would never give us something that was bad.
It's beautiful.
And so it's up to us to take it and either bless it and send it on, or to bless it and keep it and put it all over us. And that's when we have good things, we want to swim in it. We want to bathe in it. And when it's bad, so many times it's easier to bathe in it than it is to let it go.
It's true.
And so
it's true. So beautiful, my friend. We are completely out of time. I love and adore you. Where can people find you online and learn more about how wonderful you are?
Yes, and I just want to say real quick that on April 15th and 16th, Scott Colden and I will be at the autograph show in Burbank. And then we're going to be doing the Croft Con at the Orinda Theater on May 21st. And you can go to facebook.com/CroftCon. And then July 3rd, 4th, and 5th, I'm going to be in Arrow Rock, Missouri, where we filmed Tom Sawyer.
Oh, and, wow.
We're going to be watching on the 4th of July that night, Tom Sawyer on a great big screen. And Jeff East, myself, and some other people who were still with us from 50 years of Tom Sawyer will be there. And any of my friends and fans and your friends and fans who are in the area or want to go there, go to johnnywhitaker.com and
thank you, my friend.
We'll get you on.
Thank you, my friend. And if you missed those links, sheenametalspiritual.com. It's for all your spiritual, paranormal, and beautiful. Anything you need to know about my guests, just find me there. I'm on social media everywhere at Sheena Metal. Till I see you next time, my friends, seek peace, live in love, lead with kindness, embrace unity, always raise your vibration. Thank you, John. Thank you, KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. I love you all. See you next time.